Welcome back to the next chapter in the sacred chain. Last time we saw Alejandro attempting to persuade the ambitious Don Padilla to leave Esperanza and her husband Don Gutierrez alone and allow the aging gentleman to go to his grave with a measure of dignity, as Esperanza had asked him to do. It hadn't gone the way he had hoped, and Don Padilla had spoken so disrespectfully of Esperanza that Alejandro had challenged him to a duel for the honor of the good lady. This is where we pick up the story. Chapter 6. Humiliation. Don Padilla stands tall and clicks his heels together as if coming to attention. He gracefully inclines his head to Alejandro. His men lower their weapons and look on, puzzled. Alejandro finds Padilla's behavior unusual. There is an uncharacteristic refinement in the Don's movements that foreshadows deceit, but Alejandro is a true gentleman, and as one, he will graciously prospect for the purest of motives in anyone's action. Whether or not one is of gentle birth, history shows time and again that true nobility has little to do with familial lines. Genetics certainly come to bear in part upon one's predilections, natural strengths, weaknesses, and tastes, but one's nature is unambiguously affected by one's nurture, one's education, opportunities, and experiences. Playing foremost among the forces of nurture is the quantity and quality of love one receives, with its resident snuggles, kisses, approbations, caring acts, gifts given, high expectations well defined and consistently enforced, and the sword bridge balancing act of proffered limits and freedoms. But perhaps the greatest shaper of who we show up to be in this world as adult spirit beings rests within our own heads and breasts, hands and feet. The very decisions we make. Decisions, life choices, thorny conundrums that demand us to take action on this or that side of an ethical issue, do double duty in our lives. They both reveal the good, the bad, and the ugly that was residing within us all along, waiting for success or failure, glowing health or withering infirmity, stress or ease, obscurity or fame, to cause them to rise from the ocean of our subconsciousnesses and reveal their laudable or insidious presences. And those very decisions create our future selves. It's a great boon to discover the ugly truths about ourselves, ill-disposed as we are to discover them. But it's a much greater boon indeed to be granted the freedom and power to be actors and co-agents in the divine stage of the universe. For created in the very image of God, we share that creative capacity. God, our parent, as well as our Maker, affords us the significant privilege of having input in creating our lives in this world, and perhaps in other worlds, and of course, also living with the consequences of those creations. Alejandro is a gentleman, certainly not by European aristocratic standards, but he partakes of the same lineage we all share as humans, children of Adam and children of God, lineage enough to humble every saint and ennoble every criminal. Moved by the courtesy shown him by Padilla, Alejandro bows his head deeply to the nobleman, electing to believe that a noble duel, trial by combat, duly presided over by one of noble rank, will defend the honor of Esperanza. It's a decision he instantly regrets. Padilla, the moment Alejandro's head is bowed, lunges and stabs deeply into Alejandro's right shoulder joint, his sword arm. His warm heart's blood gushes down his body. Alejandro is stunned, but he reacts immediately, catching up his sword with his left hand as it falls from his right. Padilla advances steadily. Alejandro can do little more than fend off the blows raining down upon him with his weak arm. He makes a good showing given the situation, relying more on feints and footwork than effective parries. You can almost hear the music to the dance his feet are tracing. It is a dolorous mariachi tune. The trumpets are wailing mournfully. Cucurucuru, paloma, cucurucuru, no llores. Padilla is relentless. Alejandro has blood loss and severe pain weakening his resolve and spawning fatigue. He must dance to the death tune all around him. So much for glory. So much for defending a lady's honor. So much for his oft-played romantic dreams of grandeur. of a noble knight discovering his ancient royal lineage after completing acts of greatest sacrifice and purity. So much for Alejandro. Again and again, Padilla brings his sword down upon the weakening peasant hero. He moves within Alejandro's guard time and again, finding the holes in his defense. Alejandro is a master swordsman, but he feels like he is moving underwater. It's a miracle he's lasted this long with his heart's blood streaming to the ground. He knows he must move to the offensive before his final strength has waned. Alejandro catches his breath, gathers his remaining energy, and feints expertly, drawing Padilla's guard upward. He begins to strike, but Padilla is faster. He must parry, hoping to glance off the blade and continue the stroke. But when he slaps his steel at the blade, it is not there. Padilla has let go of the pommel of his sword and has brought his hands together sharply to pin it between them on either side of the flat of the blade, 6 inches from the point. The cruel nobleman lifts his sword above Alejandro's parry in this strange grip. Alejandro's parry swings too wide, and he has to stutter step to self-correct. Padilla brings his hands downward and smashes the bejeweled pommel of his sword into the top of Alejandro's skull, causing him to plummet to the ground, blood pouring from the wound in his crown. The Don pulls a linen kerchief from his vest and mops his brow, panting heavily. "Only a nobleman can assail another nobleman, Alejandro. I do not accept your challenge." The arrogant Padilla removes his gloves and saunters away, handing his sword to a stunned hireling. He enjoys the silence of his men. They fear him. He is above them and beyond them, and they are reminded once again that they live on the sufferance of the nobility. Grinning, Padilla grabs a glass of champagne and tips it toward a particular nobleman, the only person whose existence he acknowledges at this momentous occasion. A perfunctory glance points out the peculiarities in his dress in comparison with the clothing of the Spanish dons amongst whom he stands. He is an Austrian aristocrat, Fair Hartenauer, tall, clearly of northern stock. He is impeccably dressed in military attire in the European style, with both a white shirt and coat, highly decorated. He has a finely crafted sword with a many-jeweled hilt. His tall, light-haired, light-eyed genetics and distinctive apparel stand out sharply amidst the dons who are clad in the more muted garments of Spanish cut. Fair Hartenauer makes a slight motion with his head to Padilla and glances away, waiting for him to respond and move closer. Padilla rambles toward Hartenauer, glancing on either side to gauge the reaction of those standing by. He wants to keep his aura of invincibility. He hopes no one noticed the motion of Hartenauer, so they will be apprised of the fact that he is at the man's beck and call. Padilla steps in close to Hartenauer, downing more of his champagne lazily. The Austrian leans forward, and Padilla does likewise. Their heads are together, sharing some whispered thing. Hartenauer speaks a word. Padilla appears to protest. Hartenauer frowns, clearly unused to being gainsayed, even minutely. Padilla shrugs and acquiesces reluctantly, then half turns and speaks aloud for the barely conscious Alejandro, borne up between two strong men, and for the other listening ears. "Incidentally, that blow is termed Ringen am Schwert. It is German, and well known in Europe amongst the nobility." His disdain for Alejandro's low birth is apparent. "I will let you live, Alejandro, because you and I once played together as children. But I will keep Alejandro the Great's famous Bucephalus for your insolence. Throw him out." Alejandro is stunned and bleeding, but he attempts to get his feet under him. He struggles to gain purchase on the ground, knees buckling, but the strong arms of Padilla's henchmen pinion him. Bucephalus! No Spaniard would harm such a beautiful creature. Oh, his love for his steed is so great. At least she will live and be well cared for. Alejandro stifles a sob at the loss of his steed, for they are companions, and their love for one another is great. The stunned, bleeding Alejandro vainly strains to escape his captors. They appear to enjoy his futility. Suddenly a huge henchman looms in front of him. The man stands over 6'6" and is built like a refrigerator. He has a bushy mustache, greasy hair, and is clad in a worn leather vest and chaps with a sweaty shirt and boots. the hulking monstrosity of a man. Alejandro faintly remembers his name is Saul. Raises his leather-gauntleted fist and backhands him with a stroke that would fell an ox. Alejandro's head snaps back and his body slumps as he passes out. The men drag him off while nodding and commenting on the strength and prowess of Saul. The giant doesn't seem much impressed with himself or interested in their praise. He's used to being the biggest and strongest and most formidable. Padilla looks on at the scene with satisfaction, then turns and tips his glass of champagne once again to Hartenau before tossing it off. Danke, Frère Hartenau. Padilla lords his education and breeding, demonstrating the Lilliputian tidbit of German he knows. His men glance around, duly impressed, though, with knowing half-smiles showing through their mustaches. Even the Dons nod to one another appreciatively. Sie sind willkommen, Frère Padilla. The powerful Austrian humors the petty Spanish lord. His designs far exceed a simple sojourn in sunny Mexico. Ministering Angels. The aged Senor Fernandez and his wife, fingers intertwined, stroll the Gonzales grounds, Marina's haven for the poor. They breathe the crisp midland airs where wild turkey and singing quail scurry in the brake on the nearby foothills. A solitary, pied-billed grebe navigates a quiescent little pond. Yucca soapwort palms dot the hillside as the old couple shambles by on their leisurely evening constitutional. The fields of cultivated nopales cacti, an important source of income for the local farmers, as well as a toothsome staple of local cuisine, usher them back to the sweeping greensward. Ingloriously dumped on the Gonzales lawn, Alejandro lays, a mangled, bloody rag doll. Eventually, the aged Senor Fernandez and his wife discover him, clasping their wrinkled hands a bit tighter, sandaled feet ceasing their shuffling in the rust-colored Mexican sunset. They stop before the broken thing lying in their path. Senor Fernandez stares with liquid eyes, creased and furrowed with years of sorrows. His wife, Senora Fernandez, leaves her husband in a seeming stupor and hurries to the house for help. The old man slowly approaches Alejandro. He timorously kneels and touches his face, mumbling some Ave Marias and the like. Servants come rushing from the house, Marina with them. Her heart is beating, her chest is pounding, she chokes on tears. She is in shock. Is Alejandro even alive? Holy Mother, what has happened? Willing hands raise and shoulder the would-be hero and bear him limp and unconscious to the mansion, then to carry him up the marble staircase. Marina follows as in a drugged sleep, clutching the richly carved balustrade as she ascends, stomach clenched, lips blanched. Senor Fernandez senses that Marina is preoccupied with her apprehension and grief, so he directs the others to begin the care and resuscitation of Alejandro, if it is possible. Marina remains in the hallway gathering herself, pacing, trying to accept, wondering. Senora Fernandez arranges the bedclothes and removes Alejandro's boots. He stirs and groans. Marina hears the sound and snaps back into the present with resounding alacrity and rushes into the room. Alejandro, Jesus Cristo, what have they done to you? Marina. Alejandro, noting the peasants in the room, stares into a corner, screaming to her wordlessly to send them away. He is eaten up with humiliation. Senor Fernandez understands and herds the others out of the bedroom with his frail, wizened arms. We will leave you to talk. He pauses for his wife to reach him, and they shamble slowly out, leaning against one another. Gracias, mi amigos. Marina calls out to them and waits graciously until they've departed. She gently eases the door closed, her heart in her throat with trepidation. Alejandro follows her willowy form with his eyes as she moves. The fallen, battle-humbled knight holds her gaze briefly as she remains frozen a few seconds. Eventually, she takes a deep breath and returns to sit on the bed, her graceful hand gingerly feeling for his. His fingers lightly close upon hers. He is silent a long time, but she is patient. Marina, when was the last time we prayed together? The adoptive sister, long used to his ways, moves closer to him, where he lays on the cream-colored counterpane, his body plaintively responding to his substantial pain. She reaches to run her fingers through his dark hair, brushing it back from his forehead. "It was the day I gave you your St. Alred medallion." Alejandro knows the day well. He is leading to something. Marina sits serenely, listening to him as one might wait for a poem to suddenly reveal its meaning amidst the beauty of rhyme and meter. "I remember," he splutters. He pauses and glances down and around the room a bit. "It didn't work, so I stopped." "Yes, Alejandro." Such a sweet boy he was. Marina cannot help but see him sitting at the table in his father's casa the first time she laid eyes on him. He has grown to be a beautiful, kind, passionate man. But he was first a boy, and he was hers, all hers. He was hers, into whose heart to pour the endless ocean of nurture and motherhood she had within her young woman's heart. He was a little man bereft of everything. Marina had known what it was like to grow up without a mother. Her mama, like Alejandro's, had died while she was too young to remember much of her. But Marina had a gentle, good man for a father who lived until she reached her 21st birthday. 3 years ago, Alejandro had lost both lights of his life as a mere child. Alejandro gazes into her eyes as she strokes his head and face. He reaches up to play with a lock of her glossy black tresses. Suddenly his face puckers up unabashedly, remembering the unanswered prayer of a forsaken child. "I wanted me papa to come back to life." Alejandro attempts to swallow his tears unsuccessfully, while Marina cradles his head and rocks him gently back and forth. He opens his eyes after a moment. "Pray for me, so I can have the strength to try again. I don't know what else to do. Everything is falling apart." "I have never stopped praying for you." Marina gently caresses his bruised face. She closes her eyes and rocks him. The last few tendrils of purpled light linger in the sky. The Guanajuatan night descends around them, wrapping all in its warm ambrosial aromas. The coyotes and jackrabbits scurry around in their hunter and prey games. Señor y Señora Fernandez lie their aged bodies down to drowse and dream. And Don Padilla sits in his mansion staring into a dying fire, downing tequila and secretly despising himself. Alejandro's eyes are closed. He is trying to pray. Marina knows, and her heart hopes for him. She watches him, silent, salty tears, now finally released, trace their way down her graceful cheeks. Slowly, he raises his hand to his necklace and grasps his St. Alred medallion. And thus we come to the bitter ending of this chapter. It's also the last time we see Alejandro for a while, for the next chapter is set 7 centuries earlier. We're going to meet the second of the 3 protagonists in this story, and it's a true historical character. It's the very man, the saint in fact, whose emblem is on the medallion that Alejandro has clasped in his hand as he lay on the bed. We'll see you next time.